Today, we are getting the patrol set up to tackle the toughest tracks in Australia, fitting it with an upgraded worn high mount winch, long travel suspension and new undertray boxes so that this thing is ready to hit the dirt. So what am I doing standing here with this old 75 series Land Cruiser? Well, this is one of our dad's best mates, 75 series, and as you can see, it's been around the block a couple of times. I think it's done over 1 million Ks. It's been through like a couple 1.8Zs, been right around the country, and it is a bit rough. But it does have something that I want, even though it's a Toyota, it still has some valuable bits on it. And that's nestled right in the front here behind the bull bar. It's got a worn 8274 high mount winch, which my dad's mate, you know, he's used it a few times, but he doesn't really need to have it on the front. They are quite heavy. And he said he was happy for me to sort of take it off him in an exchange. I think he's got another winch to stick on it. So yeah, we're essentially gonna be ripping the winch out of this thing and sticking it in the patrol. So I suppose without any stuffing around, we're just gonna start tearing stuff off here pretty soon. We do have to move the car first. It doesn't run at the moment. I think the gearbox is blown and it hasn't started for like a month or two, so we'll get there eventually, but let's just see how we go. Which one's your cranking? Oh, there you go. It's moving. So with the old Land Cruiser moving, we positioned it under the block and tackle, ready to remove the bull bar. Sounds nice and smooth. And with the bar out, we can remove the winch. All right, so this is the high mount. It's a worn 8274 is what they're called. So same as the one Paddy's got in his Land Cruiser. This one does, however, have a few modifications done to it to make it a bit more beefier and reliable and just better performing, which is handy. So to start off, it's got, which is a common mod for the 8274s, is bracing on the drum. So otherwise this can start to warp. It's also got an upgraded motor. So this is I think it's like a 6.5. It's definitely over 6 horsepower motor, which I think standard they're only about 4 or something or other. So it's got the bigger motor. It's also got a motor and a gearbox breather as well, which I'll be able to plumb into my breather that I've got now sitting in the engine bay. It's also got a pin that holds on the free spool knob. So the thing is with Warns is your free spool knob can essentially pull right the way out. So if you're hanging off your winch or you accidentally knock it or something happens, it can fall out and then all of a sudden you're in free spool and your car's rolling down the hill. So it's just like a safety pin, it stops that from happening and you pull it out when you want to go into free spool. And then apparently it's also had something else changed to the clutch mechanism or something or other. This bolt or something's different, but I'm not too sure the extent of that. Oh, and it is 12 volt obviously as well as the other thing too. I've only got 12 volt in my car, so that's what we're using. But yeah, so essentially we're gonna give it probably a bit of a clean up, just get some of it. It's just got a bit of, you know, dirt and moss, that sort of thing on it, but we'll clean it up. And I'm also gonna be ditching the cable as well. I'm gonna be going for synthetic rope, so we will be taking that off. But yeah, I reckon for now, we'll just get some degreaser out and a few brushes and things and we'll try to get it cleaned up a little bit, so let's do it. I'll just show you guys here as well. We've actually got a good range of winches lined up here, all the sort of different types you can get. So here is the old electric low mount from the Patrol before I did all the conversion. Obviously then the high mount as well. And in the middle here, this is actually a PTO winch from a Land Cruiser, and that means it's actually driven by the engine and through the gearbox and transfer case. There's no electric motor. And this is what's going to go back in the 75 series that we just pulled the high mount out of. So it pretty much eliminates the need of an external power source such as an electric motor like these two have. And it's driven through drive shafts, off of the gearbox down to this input here, and there was actually a bunch of different ways you could power them. Some did have an external motor that bolted on, some used a hydraulic drive as well, but these are pretty nifty, and it means that, you know, they're super powerful as well because they're driven off your engine and gearbox. So yeah, pretty cool to see, all different shapes and sizes, but each with their own purpose. All right, so we've got the winch out of the old Land Cruiser. Now we're gonna get the Patrol ready to throw it in, so we'll start by ripping this bar off. So as you guys would remember, I'm running the Razzler 3-inch comp bar on the Patrol, and this bar is made to suit a high mount winch, and that's exactly why I'm chucking one in there. To fit the high mount, the bar does need to come off, so we're going to start by disconnecting the scrub bars and undoing the mounting bolts underneath. All right, so the bull bar's off. Now, before we go and stick the winch and bull bar in, we're just gonna do a little bit of the wiring stuff first. So I've gone and bought myself a giggle pin Albright 12 volt solenoid. Paddy used one of these when he did his high mount winch, and it's essentially just a much more reliable solenoid to use. They're waterproof, all the comp guys use them, so I was definitely gonna make sure I use something good. So we're gonna locate this somewhere in the engine bay. I've bought some proper winch cable, like wiring cable to run all the wires. So we're just gonna start doing that, and then once we've got it all set up, then we can go grab the winch, slap it in the bar and stick it on and it should just work.
So we cleared some room in the engine bay.
All right, now we've got a bit more room to work with.
And then I started making up a bracket that I'd be using to mount the solenoid in the engine bay.
And a hole there.
Now you can actually buy a kit that allows you to mount the solenoid to the side of the winch motor, but in my case, I wanted to stick it in the engine bay because it'll keep it all neat and also maximize the airflow to my radiator. I then drilled a couple holes in the engine bay so I could fix the bracket with riv nuts.
Damn. What do you reckon, Paddy?
Yeah, that's good.
Pretty good. Nice out the way. Doesn't get in the way of anything. Fantastic. Well, we can pull that out and give that a paint. And spray paint that and then stick everything back in and then we can start running wires. While we're here as well, Dan saw that my patrol was looking a bit out of date and gave me some LED like Parker replacements. So while we've got the grill out, this is the right time to do it. So we're gonna put these in too.
6500K, Liam, they're gonna be...
Oh yeah, they're gonna look sick.
With the paint dried, I can mount up the solenoid to our custom bracket.
Bang. Now we can stick this in the car. It's not bloody going anywhere. That's actually very good. Good thing you told me to make a bracket instead of just tech screw it. All right, so we've got the solenoid mounted in there, all secure, looks sweet. And that pretty much means that we can start thinking about some of our wiring. So pretty much on the car side of things, we've got a main positive wire from the battery to the solenoid. And then I've also got to do my switching wires, which actually I should show you, 2 seconds. We're going to have a couple ways of operating this winch. One is obviously the in-cab winch controls, which you saw I put in when I did my head unit and my new dashboard. So we've already got those wires sitting there ready to go. And I've also gone and bought a wireless winch controller. This is just the same as Paddy's one. It's just a cheap one, but it does work because obviously you're not always going to be in the driver's seat. So if I'm outside the car and need to operate the winch, this is going to be my go-to. So we're going to wire in this and the in-cab controls, and then we can think about sticking this winch on and it should just all wire up. And in terms of the cable, I haven't cheaped out. I've gone and bought some proper, this is actually welding cable, but it's 0 AWG or BNS, which is 50mm square, which is good for 250 amps, which is heaps. So I've gone and got a good length of that, which will do all the wiring to and from the solenoid to the winch.
Do I tell them how much that cable costs?
No comment. No, it was a lot. Oh yes, this is what we need. Oh yeah. Feels good to do some good cable work, you know, compared to just doing dodgy little crappy crimps. Feels good to do a proper connection. I was like, all right, we're looking good here. I reckon that actually come up mint. I'm glad we had the crimper. And now this is ready to transfer all the amperage to the winch.
And with that ready, we could mount the winch to the bull bar. We had a couple little issues with the original mounting bolts not threading easily, but this was an easy fix with our tap and die kit, allowing us to rethread the bolts and nuts. With the winch secured to the bar, we could use the block and tackle to get it ready to mount back up to the patrol. We then did a test fit to make sure the bar was going to fit up properly with the winch installed. It is a pretty tight fit on the GQs, and some people do have to cut the grill to fit a high mount winch. However, with the Raslar ball bar and a bit of persuasion, it all fits. So with the winch in its correct position, I could begin figuring out the required lengths for all my winch cables and also could crimp on all the lugs.
Positives.
I could then run the cables from the solenoid out through the grill and to the winch.
All right, so we've got the winch now in and the cables all wired. Still a little bit of cable management to do and a couple little things to throw in the car as well. But we're gonna make sure it works before we do all that. So I'll jump in the car and hit the in-cab switches and hopefully we've got it wired right and the winch should unspool and spool. So let's go see how we go.
And as expected, the winch worked perfectly, so then we could begin unspooling the existing cable to replace it with some synthetic rope.
Just stand on the frame there a bit, right?
Now, I'm stealing my old winch rope from my old low mount Grande winch, and this is going to work for the time being, but it actually turned out to be a bit harder to get off than we thought.
And look, we need to like wedge it between something.
We need to find a natural rock wedge.
Or a tree wedge.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, heave.
Han, I need to use the patrol.
Keep going. So close. A few more pulls. All right, we're there.
With our synthetic rope off the low mount, we pulled out the rest of the cable on the old high mount, ready to be replaced.
Only Aussie Arvos will put a King's family back on.
Well, no one knows it's Kings. Oh, it's not even, technically. I'm pretty sure it's Grande Kings. Look, there's still a gap above it. I'll get a new one. All right, so we've just gone and ripped the cable off now. Cable is great, and in this instance it was great because there's a lot of it. And Patrick still has cable on his, but it is a bit rough on your hands for one thing. Some people argue it's more dangerous, and I didn't have a set of rollers. So the fair lead you can only use with the synthetic rope. So we pulled this off of my old winch. It's not quite like a full length for this winch. I can fit more. This is probably only about 25 meters or so, as opposed to you can get like 35 or something on with high mount. But we're going to use this temporarily just so we've got something. And then down the line we're going to get some more and better winch rope. But yeah, let's stick this stuff on. For those of you watching at home, there's no way that is pulling through. So that's going to end up just getting pulled back into the drum, and then we're all set.
All right, and we're going in.
Oh no. Yeah, it's good having the synthetic just because it's got no memory like the cable. As you can see the way it's laid out on the ground, it just spools on easy. With the cable, if you're not putting tension on it, it'll just like unravel itself, and it's just not fun. So the synthetic is obviously much better in that regard, much easier to work with. So hell yeah, we're winching. We're winch truck challenging. Wild dog, here we come. So I should be able to winch in and it'll just pull up tension. Oh yeah, she gripping.
This is hard work. Doesn't look like it, but it actually is.
I actually reckon that'd have to be like 12 kilos. That's pretty heavy.
Just in.
Cable. So there you go. Don't use cable.
With the winch working and our rope on, I then tidied up the cables and also attached the gearbox and motor breathers and joined them into my existing breather kit.
Should be fun. All right, so we've got the winch working, super stoked with that, and we'll show you a bit more of that later as well when we get it all like properly tidy, cleaned up and working. But for now, I've got the Patrol in on the hoist because we do have to quickly as well address the suspension. So obviously being a new build, a big thing with building up your car is your suspension, getting all your spring rates right. For me, I don't really know how the car was going to be sitting at this point in time, so I did go a bit heavy with the current rates. And so to sort that out, we've got some new springs for the front and rear. So the front is going to be getting 4-inch springs that with the steel bull bar and winch will sit just right at a 3-inch, and I've also got new rear 3-inch springs that'll sit right with the bare tray sort of setup. And also to go with that, the Formula 4x4 guys have sent their new long travel shocks. These are like a development shock that are soon to come. And essentially, they're just going to be necessary to go with the lift that I'm wanting. Essentially, the ones that are in there are only really probably suited for a 2-inch lift. So to suit the springs I've got, now a bit longer shocks. So I'm keen to see how it all goes now. I think we would have nailed it this time. So we'll chuck them in and then we can see how we did. All right, here we go. All right, so I'll just show you quickly as a comparison. I've got the 2 springs here. So this is the new one. So it's an inch bigger essentially. And the reasoning behind that is because steel bull bar, scrubbies, and high mount winch, obviously, as you can imagine, a fair bit of weight there. So this 3-inch spring was sitting probably more like closer to a 2.5. So by going a 4-inch spring instead, it's going to drop back to that 3-inch, which is where I want it to sit. So yeah, that's essentially what we're doing. So we'll see if we can get these in. Hopefully I don't have to drop the diff too much, but should be right.
Extension.
Yeah, looks like the shocks are a pretty good length for the spring. Like imagine that's as loose as the spring's ever going to be. No, and the shock's probably only, I don't know, maybe 2.5 inches off, which is, yeah, really good length. So keen to see. I reckon the front end will flex awesome. That's a droop. Oh yeah, that's absolutely that's actually really good. Yeah, I reckon with the sway bars off, it'll be a bit of a demon. Look at that. Look how much travel the front has.
We then attack the rear with our new long travel rear shocks as well as our lighter weighted rear springs.
Ah, much better. Oh, definitely heaps softer. I believe the rating for these springs were 0 to 100 kilo. So bare tray with only one tank, they might have, like, it probably still wants a tiny bit more weight, but you know, by the time I put a spare tire, full tank of fuel in that, it'll probably even out pretty well. But definitely a lot better than what we had before. I can already tell. Much softer. And didn't do that before. So the springs are in, the winch is in, and now the final addition is I've bought some under tray toolboxes. Now, when I built the tray, I planned to put under tray toolboxes in. That's why I don't have any tie down rails in the front. So these are what's going in. So we pretty much, it should be very easy to mark them up and stick them in. I've already got all welded nuts up under the tray for them to bolt straight into. So we'll drill a few holes. They should fit right in. Move, please. I can already tell it rides smoother straight away. How's she looking? Oh yeah, that looks so good. The toolboxes actually look awesome. Super neat. All right, so we've got the patrol put back together. We've got our toolboxes in, which I'm actually really happy with how they turned out. Super easy to use, which is awesome. And the color match is actually pretty bang on too, which I wasn't sure how that's gonna go. So super stoked with that. But I suppose apart from the visual, I'm really keen to test out the suspensions. I think me and Paddy are gonna go down to our little local proving grounds. And yeah, we'll see what we're working with. That's pretty good. Come around this side. Oh, that's big. Oh yeah, look at that. Bloody awesome. That's very close to a 35, you know, getting close to below the sill. Pretty good. Obviously the evidence is there. Longer shocks was what we needed, and softer springs too. And as well, once like eventually more weight goes on the car as well, it forces the suspension to work even more once there's weight there, because it can't just lift the car up instead. So. All right, so as you can see, the patrol is now ready to take off-road. We've got it all pretty well sorted now. We've got the suspension pretty much dialed, working so much better than before, so stoked with that. We've obviously got the winch on the front now to get us out of any sticky situations, which I'm sure we'll come across. And yeah, I'm just super happy with how it's looking at the moment. And we're not going to spoil any more of the full driving stuff, because next time you see us, we will be going and taking the patrol for its maiden voyage. First full drive trip. We're going to be doing some tracks and some camping and that sort of thing, and I'm super excited to do that. So yeah, if you're keen for that one, hang around. If you like this episode, give it a like and leave a comment down below what you reckon. Get subscribed, and we'll see ya next time when we take the patrol off-road.